In what regard?
I think it's not going to be able to function. I think look at even things like supply chains, things we never even heard about. You never heard that term. Everything worked under me.
Donald Trump appeared on Newsmax for an interview, and there you saw him so wisely commenting on supply change. Supply change. I indeed have never heard of that, as he said. We have multiple clips to go through from this interview. Stick around for all of it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, click the alert bell, all the good things. Also, every time he says people have never heard of something, people never heard of supply change, they call it supply change. That's just Trump admitting he never heard of that thing. Which, given that he was the president of these United States of America, I'm concerned that he didn't know what supply chains were until Joe Biden became president. Now, the point he's trying to make is that everything was running so smoothly and going so well until Biden got into office, and then everything fell apart, which is a part of a larger collective, dare I say, gaslighting effort by Republicans. They do this thing where they pretend like time went from 2019 to 2021 and there was just no 2020. No, stop. Don't believe your stupid memory. None of that happened in 2020. Come on. All the problems should be blamed on Biden right when he got in office in 2021. The second he was inaugurated, that's when everything started. Even though the 2021 problems that Biden had to respond to when he got into office were all 2020 problems continued. Crime started spiking in 2020 across the country. 2021 inflation was the obvious product of, in large part, 2020 fiscal policy and the pandemic conditions. The pandemic itself and the disastrous response from Trump, Biden had to inherit. Unemployment spiked in 2020. Supply chains were a disaster in 2020 and then continued into subsequent years. Again, pandemic caused, but collectively, we're stared in the eyes by Republicans and told, no, none of that happened. Everything started when Biden got in office. The pandemic, come on. It's really aggravating. So spare me this ridiculous notion that things were just running smoothly until Biden got into office. Quite the contrary, actually. Biden inherited a disaster economically, a disaster with crime, with public health. And now just 3 short years later, supply chains have been largely addressed. Crime's back to pre-pandemic levels, and in places like Detroit at 50-year lows. We're back to normal on the public health front. So Trump should be calling Biden with tears in his eyes and saying, "Sir, how do you do it?" Next clip, Trump speaks out against the bipartisan border deal that is a Republican dream, but they're opposing it because they don't want to help Joe Biden politically.
And you have Republicans itching to sign off on this in the Senate. I mean,
well, it's hard to believe because I think it probably would mean the end of their career. This is a Democrat trap. It's a trap for Republicans that would be so stupid, so foolish to sign a bill like this. This bill can't be signed. And it's not only that, it's massive amounts of money going out of town, as we say, going out of town, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And it's so bad on the border. I've never seen anything like it. Actually, it's one of the worst, one of the dumbest bills I've ever seen. I think it's dead, totally dead at the House. I think they have almost unanimous support. But I can't imagine anybody wanting to approve this bill.
In every sentence, it's like as the sentence progresses, he has to upsell his own hyperbole. It's a bad bill. It's actually the worst bill I've ever seen on the border. It's actually the worst I've seen from the standpoint of any legislation ever. It's actually the worst single action taken by any government in the history of the world. You get the point. Now, of course, he's just spouting off nonsense. He hasn't read one page of the bill. He just wants to run on the border, so encouraging Republicans to prevent a solution is beneficial to his cause because they care more about fear-mongering about the problem than solving it. Now, this comes as the Border Patrol Union, despite previously endorsing Trump, they're endorsing this piece of legislation despite conservative opposition and Trump's opposition. NBC News reports, as conservatives in Congress have blasted the new bipartisan border agreement for not going far enough, the legislation earned a key endorsement on Monday, the labor union that represents U.S. Border Patrol agents. So even Border Patrol is for it. But Trump can only think about what is best for his electoral prospects. Now, my hope is this will backfire. People will see this political stunt for what it is and punish Trump politically for it in the election. Republicans now own problems at the border. This is their issue now if they're going to block any solutions on it. But so often people don't seem to notice these dishonest stunts. And here's a reminder before getting to more from this interview of Mitt Romney calling out Trump for this.
Oh, I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump. And the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality is that we have a crisis at the border. The American people are suffering as a result of what's happening at the border. And someone running for president ought to try and get the problem solved, as opposed to saying, "Hey, save that problem. Don't solve it. Let me take credit for solving it later."
Absolutely. Then here's Trump saying we don't have free and fair elections.
And you have a country that's funneled millions to the Biden family that's going to meddle in this election to your disadvantage. I mean, that won't be a big story. Not that we're surprised.
Well,
what do you do about China?
I think that will happen.
Yeah.
I think we have to swamp them. And I think right now we are. If you look at the polls, we're beating them so badly. But we have to swamp them. China will be involved. Others will be involved too. Our elections are very unsafe. They're not free. They're not free and fair. There's so much evidence. There's so much proof. We have it all. Nobody wants to hear about it. But if we don't have free and fair elections and strong borders, we don't have a country.
So obviously, really dangerous rhetoric there. The nonsense about Biden getting money from China, we've discussed a lot, so I won't waste time on that. Trump's the one who is obsessed with, well, first of all, I should say, Trump is the one who actually, based on the evidence, has received millions from foreign governments while he was president through his businesses, including China. But also, he's the one who's obsessed over his bizarre admiration for and great relationship with Xi Jinping. So why he's acting like they're so afraid of him getting into office, I don't know. But he's already setting up, as we've been seeing, claims of fraud if he loses to Joe Biden again. He somewhat recently said the only way he can lose is if they cheat. Even though the most recent widely publicized poll had Biden leading Trump, that Quinnipiac poll. So it's obviously very possible that Biden will win, but Trump's convincing, as he did in 2020, his followers that it's impossible for him to lose. And if he does, it was rigged again. Pretty frightening. Then you have this.
I want to ask you.
The country is just, it's so pathetic. And you know, other countries are watching this. I'll tell you what, I got to know Putin very well. I got to know Xi very well. I got along with everybody, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But they knew it was no games. I was talking to Putin a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. There's no way he would have ever moved.
He said, quote, "The country's so pathetic." Imagine if Joe Biden said that. Fox News would cover it 24/7, saying Biden's the most unpatriotic person ever. He's spitting in the faces of all the troops and everyone, our entire country. He hates it. He's an America hater. Go to a different country. Blah, blah, blah. But Trump's constantly going around saying the country's not great anymore and it's pathetic and we're a third world nation and all of that. And the right doesn't care at all. One thing I wanted to make sure to show you, this is really interesting. Rachel Maddow covered a story that I discussed on the David Pakman show yesterday, and I wanted to cover it here too. Here's Rachel Maddow discussing Trump's fake, phony, staged non-union event that is so Trumpian.
Trying to make it look like he was supporting these union auto workers who were out on strike, who the whole country was rallying in support of, he instead went to a non-union auto parts facility. And while his campaign tried to convince people to say that he was there speaking to striking auto workers, or at least he was speaking to auto workers, the problem was that real reporters actually went to the event. And they realized quickly that this was a facility that doesn't have anybody in a union. And then the reporters did what reporters do. They talked to the people who were physically there. And so this was the Detroit News the next day. Quote, "One individual in the crowd who held a sign that said union members for Trump acknowledged to a Detroit News reporter that she was not a union member. Another person with a sign that read auto workers for Trump, when asked for an interview, said that he wasn't an auto worker." Neither person provided their names. This was very embarrassing, right? He's trying to look like he was supporting the union, but he's at a non-union facility that he filled with people who were given signs and effectively told to pretend to be union workers or even to pretend to be auto workers when they were no such thing. He did a fake event. I mean, the whole thing was fake. And then it was in the Detroit press the next day that it was fake. This you skipped the debate for? It was so embarrassing at the time. And now, as of right now, there are receipts. Literal receipts. The campaign finance filings that just came out for all the various campaigns. Reporter Jonathan Oosting at Bridge, Michigan dug in and found that on that day in September, the Trump campaign indeed paid a $20,000 rental fee to pay to rent that auto parts plant.
Nothing is more Trumpian than spending 20 grand to stage an event to make it look like union members support you, to compete with the fact that union members actually support Joe Biden as he's on the picket line with them. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership.